filled with nothing but the usual flickering lights and shifting shadows. Just as Miguel considered giving up for the night, a familiar figure appeared on the screen. It was Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. The cardinal moved with purpose, completely unaware of the camera capturing his every action. What happened next left Father Miguel frozen in his chair, his heart racing in disbelief. 2 weeks earlier, the town was alive with excitement. Word had spread quickly. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle was coming to visit their parish. The news ignited a spark of anticipation in everyone, from the devout churchgoers to those who rarely set foot inside. His reputation for compassion and humility had reached far beyond the church walls, making him a figure admired by all. The days leading up to his arrival were a flurry of preparation. The pews were polished, the courtyard swept clean, and decorations carefully arranged to honor such a distinguished guest. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope that everybody has a wonderful start of the new ecclesiastical year. Welcome back to St. Sophia's. Today we're here with the help of Cosmos Philly to show you what's the newest thing going on here at St. Sophia, Father Miguel announced. Families began arriving hours before the service, eager to secure a spot close enough to see the cardinal in person. The church filled quickly, and soon even the courtyard overflowed with people craning their necks for a glimpse of the man whose presence seemed to carry a sense of hope. Father Miguel stood by the main entrance, fidgeting with his collar. Despite the cool evening breeze, his palms were damp with nerves. He had met Cardinal Tagle before, but this occasion felt different, more significant. The burden of the recent burglaries weighed on the parish, and Miguel silently prayed that the cardinal's visit might bring some much-needed relief. The sound of gravel crunching under tires signaled the arrival of the sleek black car. Miguel took a deep breath and stepped forward. As the vehicle came to a stop, the cardinal emerged, offering his signature warm smile and a slight bow to the gathered crowd. "Your Eminence," Miguel greeted, bowing deeply. The cardinal's presence seemed to ripple through the crowd like a wave of calm. Parishioners who had been tense and reserved due to the recent crimes now greeted each other with warmth and optimism. It was as if his arrival alone had lifted their spirits. Inside the church, the cardinal moved through the sea of people with ease and grace. He shook hands, offered blessings, and spoke to each person with genuine interest, making them feel seen and valued. Father Miguel watched from the edge of the crowd, filled with admiration. Despite his high rank, Cardinal Tagle carried himself with the humility of a servant. His charisma was as natural as the air he breathed. Yet, as Miguel observed, something caught his eye. Clara, the church housekeeper, stood near the side aisle. Normally quiet and composed, she seemed unusually tense. Her hands fidgeted nervously, and she kept glancing toward the cardinal with an expression Miguel couldn't quite place: fear? Concern? Something else entirely. It was subtle but unsettling enough to make him note to speak with her later. For now, though, the focus remained on the cardinal and the transformative energy his visit brought to the parish. Little did Miguel know, this was just the beginning of a series of events that would challenge everything he thought he knew. Clara lingered in the shadows near the sacristy. Her hands clasped tightly together, her gaze flitted nervously toward Cardinal Tagle. Her posture was rigid and tense, as though she were bracing herself for a moment she dreaded. When the cardinal finally moved closer, she hesitated for a brief second before stepping forward. In a hushed tone, she whispered something to him, her words inaudible from where Father Miguel stood. The cardinal nodded slightly in response, his face a mask of calm revealing nothing of the exchange. Without another word, Clara turned and exited abruptly, her pale face etched with an emotion Miguel couldn't quite decipher: fear, perhaps, or guilt. Whatever it was, it unsettled him. Miguel's stomach churned as he tried to make sense of what he had just witnessed. Clara had always been composed and discreet, never drawing attention to herself. Yet here she was, behaving in a way entirely out of character, especially in the presence of someone as respected as Cardinal Tagle. Miguel attempted to brush off his unease, chalking it up to nerves over the day's important events. But the memory of Clara's fleeting words and the cardinal's cryptic response refused to leave him. A nagging suspicion gnawed at the edges of his mind, hinting that their interaction carried a significance he couldn't yet grasp. As the evening progressed, Miguel tried his best to focus on his duties, greeting parishioners and ensuring the visit unfolded smoothly. Yet his thoughts kept circling back to Clararara. What could she have said to the cardinal? Why had she appeared so rattled? Miguel pushed these questions aside, determined not to let his own overthinking spoil what should have been a joyous occasion. It was nearing midnight when the shrill buzz of Miguel's phone shattered the silence of his modest bedroom. Startled, he fumbled for the device on his nightstand, squinting at the screen through blurry eyes. The caller ID displayed the name of the security company responsible for monitoring the recently installed cameras at the church. A cold knot of anxiety formed in his chest after weeks of uneventful surveillance. A call at this hour could only mean one thing: trouble. "Father Miguel," came the operator's calm yet urgent voice, "we've detected some unusual activity on the church premises. You may want to review the footage from camera 3 near the east corridor." Miguel hung up, his heart pounding. Pulling on a jacket over his night clothes, he hurried toward the small office where the security monitors were housed. The church was eerily silent, its long corridors cloaked in shadows, moonlight filtering through stained glass windows, casting fractured colors onto the floor. But the beauty did little to ease his growing unease. Once seated in the glow of the monitors, Miguel navigated to footage from earlier in the evening. At first, the screen displayed nothing out of the ordinary: empty hallways, locked doors, the stillness that always settled after hours. But as the timestamp crept past 11 p.m., a figure emerged from the shadows. Its movements were deliberate and cautious. Miguel's breath caught in his throat as the dim light revealed the unmistakable form of Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. Miguel leaned closer, his pulse quickened. The cardinal's movements were furtive, as though wary of being seen. He paused every few steps, glancing over his shoulder, scanning the darkness with a weariness that didn't match the composed, benevolent man Miguel had seen earlier that day. Miguel's chest tightened. What was the cardinal doing wandering the church at this hour? The scene became more troubling with each passing second. As the footage continued, Miguel gripped the edge of the desk. Alarm fully replaced unease as Cardinal Tagle approached Clararara's quarters. He paused just outside her door, hand hovering over the doorknob. He glanced down the dim hallway one last time, ensuring no one was watching. Satisfied he was alone, he turned the knob and slipped inside. Miguel sat frozen, eyes fixed on the monitor, mind racing. How could this respected and revered man be moving so covertly? A wave of doubt and confusion washed over him. His first instinct was to give the cardinal the benefit of the doubt. Surely there had to be an innocent explanation. But the secrecy, the cautious glances, the odd timing all gnawed at his resolve. He replayed the footage, scrutinizing every detail. The cardinal's movements were methodical, not casual. Miguel leaned back in his chair, unease growing with each second. Why visit Clararara's room, of all places? Miguel muttered to himself, trying to brush aside darker possibilities, but they clung stubbornly. His rational mind sought explanations. Perhaps the cardinal needed something urgent from Clararara, or maybe he was delivering private news. Yet the footage suggested otherwise. There was a clear air of secrecy. After 30 minutes, with no satisfying conclusion, Miguel turned off the monitor and rubbed his temples. He resolved to watch and gather more information before jumping to conclusions. But deep down, uneasy thoughts lingered. The cardinal's actions hinted at something far more complex than Miguel could yet comprehend. He tried to shake the feeling as he left the office, but the church corridors seemed darker, the silence more oppressive. Miguel told himself he was doing the right thing by waiting, but a small voice in his mind whispered that hesitation might come at a cost he couldn't foresee. The next morning, sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting warm colors across the walls, but despite the glow, the atmosphere was heavy. Whispers rippled through the congregation, furtive glances and uneasy expressions. Word of the cardinal's late-night movements had spread. Miguel guessed the source was the security company. He'd hoped to keep the matter contained, but now it was slipping into the parish's collective consciousness, threatening to spiral into scandal. "I heard he was seen near Clara's quarters," a woman whispered, barely audible but filled with curiosity. "Surely it's nothing," replied another, though her tone carried doubt. "Cardinal Tagle is a man of God. There must be an explanation." But not everyone was charitable. A gruff voice cut through the murmurs. "A man is a man," he said bluntly. "Clergy or not, sneaking around at that hour raises questions." Father Miguel moved through the crowd, heart sinking with each passing comment. Every word felt like a stone added to the weight already pressing on his shoulders. He'd hoped the incident would remain private, something he could resolve quietly while piecing together the truth. Instead, it had become parish talk, threatening to escalate into scandal. The unease was palpable, feeding off whispers and speculation. Miguel's attempts to reassure himself that he was doing the right thing by watching began to falter. For the first time, he wondered if delaying action had been a mistake. Whatever the truth behind the cardinal's actions, the matter was far from contained. Miguel couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to spiral in ways he wasn't prepared to handle. Father Miguel's uncertainty only deepened. The burden he carried was immense. He couldn't ignore what he'd seen. But confronting Cardinal Tagle without solid evidence felt unthinkable. The cardinal wasn't just a senior clergyman, he was a revered figure. A false accusation could irreparably harm Tagle's reputation, the church's image, and Miguel's own position. Yet silence weighed heavily on his conscience. His thoughts turned to Clarara, always a quiet presence, now a shadow of herself. She avoided eye contact, shoulders hunched, her gaze fixed on the floor. Miguel watched her from a distance, noting her isolation. Could her behavior be tied to the cardinal's visits, or was he building a story where none existed? That evening, Miguel sat once again before the security monitor. The dim glow illuminated his furrowed brow, his hands trembling as he replayed footage frame by frame. It revealed the same troubling pattern: Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle leaving his quarters in the dead of night, walking deliberately through church corridors, pausing briefly outside Clarara's door before entering. Each visit lasted an hour, sometimes two, before he returned to his quarters. Miguel's unease turned to alarm when he spotted one particularly unsettling moment, footage showing the cardinal quietly beckoning Clarara toward him. She hesitated, posture tense, then moved closer. Her body language was cautious and deliberate. Later, as she left the room, her eyes were rimmed red, as if she had been crying. This pattern was not isolated. The consistency suggested something intentional and deeply secretive. Miguel's thoughts swirled with conflict. He wanted to believe in an innocent cause, but the secrecy cast a long shadow over any hopeful assumption. For hours, he sat in silence, weighing options. Confronting Cardinal Tagle would risk everything, but doing nothing felt like betrayal of his own integrity and of the parish's trust. He was trapped in an impossible dilemma. Then the night's phone call came again. "Father Miguel," the voice said, "we've reviewed more footage and noticed a recurring pattern. Given the circumstances, we're obligated to inform you that this behavior is highly irregular and may warrant further action." Miguel thanked the caller. If the security company had flagged the cardinal's actions, how much longer could he justify doing nothing? His gaze drifted back to the monitor. There, a frozen image of Tagle outside Clarara's door stared back. The cardinal's expression was calm, but the deliberate secrecy of his movements betrayed an unsettling purpose. Miguel leaned back. Dawn's light would soon break, and with it, his decision loomed. He couldn't ignore what he had seen. The truth